holding it high enough, y'all.
You're so honest.
How about if I said I am on my tippy toes?
There you go. Okay. Or you can just say, Doug, shut up. Leave me alone.
Everybody okay?
Good work, Derek. Thank you.
That's what I'm
Good
here
job,
for.
So they pay you the big pesos. Sounds so dead right now. Sir, could you tap the microphone, please?
Yeah.
Final audio check. 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm good. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Yep. Use the final audio. Set up.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, my heart goes out to the family and their friends. I'd also like to extend my sincerest condolences to everyone who has been affected by this senseless tragedy. As a husband and a father, this incident is very difficult for me to even think about. As hard as it is to share this news, we want to assure the neighbors and the community that we are not looking for a suspect. This was a domestic dispute involving one family. At the family's request, there is some information such as their name and other particulars that we will not be sharing at this particular time. And with that, I would like to introduce Lieutenant Matt Dobbs from the Homicide Section.
Hello. At 6:49 this morning, we received a 911 call from a resident in the 2100 block of Flint Ridge Drive. There was no communication with that caller, but the dispatcher could hear an argument in the background and someone being asked to leave. Officers were dispatched to the scene, and while they were en route, a relative who lived next door called the police also after hearing an argument and the sound of what he believed to be a nail gun firing. When the officers arrived on scene, they were able to look through one of the windows and see a small child inside covered in blood. They forced entry into the residence, where they discovered 5 additional people inside suffering from apparent gunshot wounds. A 31-year-old male, a 29-year-old female, and a 3-year-old boy were pronounced dead at the scene. 3 other juvenile boys, aged 5, 9, and 11, were transported to local hospitals for treatment. Unfortunately, 2 of those children have died also. The third is in the hospital undergoing emergency surgery. It's still very early in the investigation, but it appears to be a tragic case of domestic violence, murder-suicide. We do know the victim had attained a restraining order yesterday. It is unclear if that order had been served, but we do believe the suspect was aware of it. The deceased male and female were the parents of the children, and we believe the male came over this morning. There was some kind of argument or disagreement, and he used a handgun and shot his family before turning the gun upon himself. At this time, we'll open up for any questions.
It's obvious how the family is, but how are the officers that had to experience this?
Excellent question. As you can imagine, I've been doing this almost 32 years. These are the toughest kind of calls we respond to. We had a lot of officers respond to the scene. Some of those officers actually carried some of these kids out so they could get medical aid. A lot of our officers on scene also have young ones at home. So this greatly impacts those officers. So as we speak right now at Southeastern Division, we have our wellness team out there with our professionals that are doing a critical incident debrief with those officers that responded, and we'll be making all the resources available through wellness to those officers that responded.
Do they generally go back to work today or tomorrow, the ones who were there who carried the children out?
Yeah, we will look at that by case. It all depends really how well the officers are doing, what resources they need, how resilient they are. But we are prepared to, obviously, if they need time off, then obviously they will be given that time off to deal with this. You know, especially we had several officers that just had kids, newborn kids. And so obviously this really impacts the officers responding to that kind of call.
Some of the officers who were there just had newborns?
Yes.
What's
So-
that like for them, though, to come out
It's-
and just to see a 3-year-old? You said it was a 3-year-old, the first one they saw, right?
Yes.
Covered in blood?
Yes, it's, you can imagine. I mean, this job, you know, you do it long enough. Unfortunately, you see incidents like this. I can tell you, anytime you go to a child death, whether it be a natural or in this case a criminal act, it's just your mind's not meant to filter that kind of information, and it's extremely difficult. And that's why we are immediately doing this type of a debrief and making certain that we have our professionals on hand to help those officers deal with those emotions.
Was there a history with the mother, the victim? You guys called her, I believe Lieutenant Dodger called her the victim. She filed a restraining order. Was there any history of domestic violence in that home?
Yeah, the only thing that we're able to determine happened a couple weeks ago, right around November 1st, where we had officers respond out to that same address over disturbance over property. The male suspect side was asking his wife for tools. They had been separated, and the officers provided that kind of preserve the peace type of a call, and the suspect left at that time, and our female victim was provided information on how to obtain a restraining order, which we know at this time she did.
So it appears that the male was not living in the residence. Do you know how long that he had been outside of the family unit?
Yeah, that's one, we know it's been some time. Exactly, we don't know yet. That's still, more interviews need to be done with the victim's family to determine that, but we know he was not living at the home at this particular time.
So would you consider him an ex-husband, a husband who's estranged, or a boyfriend or an ex-boyfriend? How would you describe him?
Best we know, they were going through some type of divorce process, so.
Now, we saw that the crime scene appeared to be at a granny flat behind a main house. We then saw a family leaving that house. Are they extended family members?
I'll let Lieutenant Dobbs answer that.
Yes, the property and the adjoining buildings are all occupied by the same family, or members of the family from extended cousins and uncles.
So they pretty much heard and saw everything, and we know that there's young children there.
We're still interviewing them to see exactly what they saw or heard. I don't know if any of them actually witnessed any of the shooting, but obviously they're going through an extremely traumatic, event that most of us can't even fathom.
Of the 3 children who were taken to the hospital, which one is the survivor and what's the nature of their injuries?
All the children suffered apparent gunshot wounds. The surviving child we initially believed is the 11-year-old. However, several of the children are very similar in size and stature, so we're not able to confirm at this point. They are in surgery, so the family members haven't been able to go in and look at them to tell us.
So it's safe to assume that the child's in critical condition?
Yes, very critical.
Are they all, the woman, the mother and father, all 4 of these children are their children?
Yes, they are.
They are. And are there any more children who weren't there that are there?
Not that we're aware of, no.
How did the officers force entry into the home, and where did they find the people inside of the home?
They forced entry through a window. They were able to break the window out and crawl through. I'm not going to get into the specifics about where in the residence they were found at this time.
But was it the smaller of the 2 houses out there?
Yes.
So the granny flat is the scene of the crime, and then the man you said earlier in the main house was the person who called 911. Is that correct?
He was the second caller, yes.
So the first caller, do you know if it was from a child or the wife or the dad? Do you know who it was from?
We don't. All we know is the phone was, 911 was dialed from that phone, and there was no contact with the caller, so it could have been anyone grabbing that phone.
What do you want to say about domestic violence in general? Because this clearly escalated.
Yeah, thank you. We know throughout this county, throughout this city, that there's domestic violence victims every single day. I think it's nearly 50 calls a day throughout this region. And so, to those that might be experiencing family violence, domestic violence, there's resources. You can call either our non-emergency line, the Family Justice Center, or if there's an emergency going on, we ask you to call 911. We will get assets to you very, very quickly. But don't be afraid to call. That's the first step. We want to prevent types of family violence like unfortunately that we saw today. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.